Hello, my name's James. I'm from Glasgow Gaelic School and I'm going to talk about Kim Jung-gi, who was a South Korean artist known for drawing without any preliminary lines. Kim Jung-gi was from South Korea, who died in 2022 in Paris at the age of 47. He died far too young. He was mostly influenced by Western comic artists and various other Eastern artists as well. Many have speculated he may have had photographic memory, although contrary to speculation, he did not, because what he said he did was obsessive observation. Rather than looking at a reference and working off of it and copying it and then identifying its form and trying to recreate it, he would look at something in real life, imagine how it would take shape, take form in 3D space on a piece of paper, and he would recreate it to the best of his ability. Kim himself said that he viewed so many references over his lifetime that he was eventually able to recall images perfectly. When I say recall, that's from himself, not from something he'd seen before. I believe he was the Michelangelo of comic art, a modern master. I'm going to be talking about Tiger is Coming, one of his most captivating pieces. I think it's a perfect example of all the techniques that he uses, that he has a mastery over. He uses perspective, form, anatomy, and lots of other different techniques in order to make his pieces so engaging. In this one specifically, he was heavily influenced by the Chinese zodiac year of the tiger, 2022, which led him to draw lots of tigers in that year, and he drew a lot. In the top tiger, you can observe lots of little rabbit, humanoid-looking people running away from the tigers, or the tigers running away from something else. In the middle of the body of the tiger, you can see that there's an entirely different scene going on, a top angle, zooming in on a sort of surgery scene. I like Kim Jung-gi's use of perspective here. It really exemplifies his level of mastery and his addiction to detail. As well as that, there's so much to look at. Nothing's a focal point when everything is something that he said, because he drew with so much detail that it didn't matter if the subject didn't have a composition or a subject matter, because there was just so much to digest when you look at them. So along from the surgery, you can see that the tiger actually has 6 legs, and within each of those legs there's actually, as well as a fur texture, there's little tigers, little people, little rabbits embedded within that tiger's fur. Moving down the way, there's an opposite tiger as they rotate in a sort of yin and yang circular composition. Underneath, in this tiger's body, it appears to be chasing the upper tiger's tail, and within its body as well, you have similar scenes using different angles and perspective, more anatomy, more form, more contrast, and line economy involved as well. Kim Jung-gi used a mixed ink media for this, primarily an oil and a brush pen. He said he liked to use the brush pen because he could apply heavy and thin lines very easily with just the one thing, and if he pushed hard enough, he could get these nice deep shadows that he could apply where it was necessary. Kim Jung-gi and passion. Throughout the presentation, Kim's passion will be heavily demonstrated through the volume of works he produced and the amount happening in each, and his humour. For me, Tiger is Coming truly exemplifies his addiction to detail. Here's a few more of those pieces. Kim Jung-gi as a child. In the various interviews and lectures of Kim Jung-gi, he said as a child he would scrutinise objects and people daily. He would analyse how they existed and take shape in 3D space and then recreate it on paper. An example would be the bicycle, an object he said was particularly challenging. Around the age of 10, Kim said that he had grasped drawing tanks thanks to his practice of primitive forms in 3D space. Primitive form being a cube or a sphere or a pyramid or something like that. Kim Jung-gi actually said that rather than learning absolutely everything, every object in existence, he instead would take objects such as a bike saddle, and he would use a mnemonic, link and or chain, in order to refer that bike saddle to something that is similar in shape, like a fox head. So when he was drawing cars, he would take 2 bicycles, that very hard object that took him a while to learn, rather than learning a car from the bottom up, from its gears, from its steering wheel. Instead, he would take 2 bicycles, he would place them parallel, and he would imagine the car's features filling in between there. So you would have 4 seats, you'd driver's seat, passenger's seat, and with those bicycles he's got four wheels, and he can just build a car on top of that. and that made drawing things from imagination very easy, as for example here, if you could visualize it, the two bicycles at either side. Kim Jung-gi's observation skill. Kim said he was able to draw without guidelines by his innate ability to observe. He expanded his visual library by studying objects fantastical, fictional, and real, and through that repetition he was eventually able to reproduce one-to-one drawings with no reference. Kim Jung-gi did not have photographic memory. He emphasized that his skill came from constant observation and not an ability to recall images perfectly. He actively collected visual resources constantly and studied them to further enhance his understanding for drawing. In this specific example, it's very clearly the Eiffel Tower in Paris. This is also where he died, in Paris in 2022. As you can see, this is actually a point of view drawing, so he drew this from life. I would imagine that the giant people climbing on the side of the tower aren't real, but these are the type of things, this is the sort of reality that he can alter when it comes to his drawings because of that visual library that I mentioned. He uses 5-point perspective in this specific one here, or 4-point perspective if you will, and he draws the large people on the side. I think it was because there was construction going on at that exact moment when he was visiting the Eiffel Tower. If you look at the bottom, it's a little bit small, but you can see part of his notebook where he was actually drawing this. Kim Jung-gi's mastery in the different fields of art. In art as a subject are the techniques and skills used to produce those subjects. When it comes to art masters, they tend to have an emphasis in one certain skill, such as perspective or anatomy. Take George Bridgman for anatomy and Auguste Renoir for colour. When it comes to Kim, by looking at his drawings, although chaotic, his works had a mixture of all and at an elite level. I believe Kim was especially talented in perspective, but the same could be said for his anatomy and use of negative space. This also, I can touch here on his line economy and line confidence, because he drew in pen the majority of the time, or ink, oil, brush, ballpoint, whatever he decided to use on that day. And because he didn't use any preliminary guidelines at all, you need to be very confident in order to draw lines that will come out as a form that makes sense in the end. And Kim was very good at looking away from the drawing. The closer he looks, the less he'll actually see. So he wouldn't get tunnel vision and he wouldn't get distracted by one part of the drawing. He would always keep in mind it as a whole, the composition as a whole, and ensure that it was engaging. Kim Jung-gi and his mandatory service. When Kim was conscripted for his mandatory military service, he didn't think much of it, but the prospect of weapons to study excited him. He hid his ability to draw as the commanding officers would ask artists within their ranks to draw likenesses of loved ones. He didn't want to. His military experience helped refine his understanding of anatomy, and seeing people in motion further improved his ability to understand the human figure as a dynamic 3D form. Objects such as military equipment aren't involved in daily life. It excited Kim as he would be able to study vehicles and weapons. He didn't want to draw likenesses. Instead, he wanted to study form and figure in motion. He would do drills such as parachuting from planes and shooting drills and these assault courses and things like that. And he said he would observe his fellow soldiers and he would watch them as they moved and understand how their muscles moved, how the clothes, the folds, they took shape above their bodies. He would also look at the weapons, the sniper rifles, the assault rifles, the tanks, the helicopters, and the different types of cars that you wouldn't see on the street every day. And he would ensure that he would study them very, very closely, one-to-one, so he'd be able to reproduce them. If you look in the top, I'm not sure what kind of helicopter that is, but it took him a while to study that one, and you can see he's applying his perspective again. Looks to be 4-point perspective, and negative space as well, and proportion. Kim Jung-gi and his influences. Kim was heavily influenced by Western comic artists growing up, such as Moebius, Georges Herod, and Will Eisner. Will Eisner is very important as he affected Kim's line economy. In the majority of Kim's works, he either uses a fine tip marker or a brush pen. The fact he didn't use any guidelines shows how advanced his hand-eye coordination is and mastery in each line. Korean ink calligraphy further influenced his line economy and Will Eisner. Jean Giraud, a Euro comic artist, with had very profound compositions that affected the backgrounds and environments that Kim Jung-gi drew. If you look to the left, the top left, there's a lot of piping. That's the interior of a submarine. I don't think he ever worked in one during his mandatory service, but he probably looked at a few reference images and studied them, or he might have visited a submarine. Either way, you can see how he applies perspective. Once again, this is also, I think, emphasizing his specific mastery and level of skill in that field of art, and also his human figure is very accurate. What he would do is he would begin with a head or something that I thought was the most important part of a piece. He would draw that first, and then he said as he was drawing the lines, putting them to paper, he would start with something, and then once he got to an arm of a body, he would already know what the rest of the body looked like, what the walls would look like surrounding them, and the floors that they're walking on. In conclusion, Kim Jung-gi was a master. He would use perspective, anatomy, form and contrast to make his pieces engaging. His works, in my opinion, each are masterpieces. Here are a few more of his works. I think because of his level of skill in every single field of art, I could say he emphasized that in perspective again. That really ties back to Tiger is Coming, because I think, in Tiger is Coming, I think that it's very much exemplified his attention to detail, the level of skill, the level of his understanding of art, the basic shapes in 3D, and how he's able to recreate them on paper and such. I think it was good. I think it was very good.